right, so today I'm going to be talking about the snowball effect and why starting small, especially in terms of habit making, can have a bigger impact, especially in the long run, or in terms of long run there. So I want to describe a scenario to you guys first, just to see if it sounds familiar. So potentially it's the new year. It's finally going to be the year that you get your shit together. So you're going to start cutting out coffee and sugar. You're going to go to bed early. You're going to wake up early. Start taking subs in the morning or at nighttime. Start drinking 3 liters of water. And any other new habits, exercising a certain amount of times a week, things like that. Start tracking your finances, all those good things. And then you do those for a couple of weeks. You feel really good. And then all of a sudden, none of them stick. And you feel pretty down the dumps. It's definitely happened to me, especially over the past few years, where I've just kind of you've really got a lot of energy at a certain time to get things going, and then you kind of feel that you failed because you've just tried to chew up more than you can, bite more than you can chew. Has anyone gone through that? Hands up if you feel like you have at some point. Awesome. I'm going to hope that Vince has his hands up. Yep, great. Would love someone to share how that made you feel when you didn't do what you set out to do with those habits or whatever it was.
Feel like a failure, like you've let yourself down, really.
Yep, absolutely. Steph?
Felt a bit of shame.
Yeah.
Didn't feel like coming forward because maybe I told people what my goals were and they were really supportive, and then I was like, oh, didn't follow through, and then it kind of gets into a shame spiral.
100%. Definitely. Yeah, so some feelings that I've definitely felt as well. Guilty, overwhelmed, and also just lowering your motivation, and self-esteem as well. So just when you set out to do something and you don't do it, just chips away a little bit at your self-esteem and your confidence that you can do something else that you said you want to. And then I just want you to think, why do people do that? Why do we go out and want to sort of do so much at once, and why do we avoid sort of the slow grind or the choosing one thing at a time and really getting that set? A lot of the time it's people trying to overcompensate or reduce the time that they sort of take to get to the end goal. So people think that this snowball effect, of what I'm going to describe later, will take longer, but in reality it's usually the only way that you can get long-term results that are going to stick, versus the short term. We'll talk about that in a sec, but the short term where you can potentially sometimes get some good results really quick, but it doesn't last. And so you're kind of just riding this roller coaster. So trying to change multiple behaviors at once can work, for some people, but it doesn't often work in the long run. So research has shown that when people try to change one behavior at a time, the likelihood that they'll maintain that habit for a year or more is better than 80%. When you make it 2 or more, the chances go down to 35%. So it's less than half the chances of actually keeping with that for a year's time. If you go to 3 or more, it's less than 5%. So it's huge numbers. Really makes you think a little bit about how long-term you've got to really be with some of these things. And that's not necessarily, Ollie, I told Ollie that earlier, and he asked a good question, which is, what's the time frame on that? And it doesn't mean that you have to have one habit for the whole year and that's it. But when you're working on a habit, it just means you're working on that one and you're not doing 2 at a time. So if you're doing one habit for 4 weeks, which is what we usually run at FIT, but anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks, once you've sort of locked that in, then you move on to the next. You're only doing 1 at a time ever. And so we start really small, and we start to build up that snowball and build a bit of speed and momentum. The other way is that if there's a really strong driving force, say like a heart attack or a family emergency, thing like that, that can be enough of a driving force to change heaps of things at once and for it to stick. But it's not something it's very reliable, and it's not really something you want to have to rely on to make those changes. So what do I want you guys to get out of this today? Number one is understanding how habits are formed and the benefits of starting with just one habit. Having a program that's going to work for you and for your coach that's going to help you stay accountable, and some actionable tools that you can instantly implement going out of this. So this is going to help lead you to avoiding stress of doing too much or feeling overwhelmed, feeling disappointed, losing motivation, and just stopping that roller coaster of stop, start, stop, start, and just changing your perspective a bit from quick fixes to a bit more of a long-term horizon. So, what is a habit? Within psychology, habits are actions that are automatically triggered in response to contextual cues that are associated with the performance of that action. So, for example, automatically washing your hands after using the toilet is a contextual habit. Putting on a seatbelt is an action that you do after getting into the car, and the car there is the contextual cue. So these are things that you don't have to think about, you automatically do. So repetition of that simple action in a consistent context leads to the action being performed in following exposure to those contextual cues. So after this happens, you don't need motivation or interest anymore to continue performing these habits, which frees up your brain for other things and allows you to start moving on to further habits and building up that snowball. So what do things look like for most people when they start at this? A lot of the time, you might be familiar with this, but trying to do way too much or doing nothing at all might look like running every day or restricting yourself way too much with something, doing HIIT workouts 6 days a week, just pretty much in general, the all or nothing approach a lot of the time. The snowball effect, this is where the snowball effect comes in. So what is it? It's really the most effective way to achieve long-term success. So just like building a pyramid or a house, the foundation is the most important thing. We have to have a strong foundation. So that's going to look like basic foundational habits, things like just increasing your movement, increasing water intake, building a nutritional awareness. So really simple, basic things. Most people want to start with the big hitters, thinking that that's going to get them the quickest and best results possible. And that's going to look like cold tubs, high step counts, meditation every day, 3 workouts a week, full macronutrient plans. So things like that, where you skip the foundational habits that are really going to give you a strong base. Excuse me. So it's kind of the difference between making a giant snowball from scratch and rolling it around versus starting with a balloon and then just covering the outside of the snowball. Like, which one do you think is going to survive when you push it down a hill and when things get rough? That's how I would love you to think about it there. So another question for you guys is, what happens to you when you're consistent with a habit, no matter how small? Is there something that you guys have managed to be consistent with over a period of time, and how did you feel when you did that?
I think in terms of when you actually can be consistent, and that was the breakthrough for me last year, was rather than having, and now I know why I wasn't working based on those stats you gave. I ended up choosing my only goal was consistency. So it didn't matter how minimal the movement was. If it was a 15-minute walk and that's all I did one day, I was still at least consistently doing something to move, rather than, and you felt good rather than feeling the opposite of failed because I only walked 15 minutes today and didn't actually get to the gym.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, great, felt good. Vince, did you have something?
Oh, no, I was just going to say, typically, like, I mean, I'm a pretty disciplined person, so I don't really have a huge problem with hitting those sort of goal type scenarios. But I usually find that the biggest reward for me is just the progress. When you especially if it's a visual thing, like if it is training and you see the results on your body or just how you feel. Usually, that I find that the actual progress of actually attaining the goal that you're trying to achieve is usually the best thing.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. In my experience, I definitely find that I build confidence in myself and improve my self-esteem when I prove to myself that I can do what I've set myself, depending on how little it is. So, yeah, Steph, please.
I realized that I did a lot better when I simplified even just like, for example, nutrition. You were very right when it comes to like getting the macros or getting like a certain amount of protein and all of that. I ended up finding most success when I simplified it to just doing meal prep once or twice a week instead of thinking about every single day trying to do something. It's more like getting it right in the most basic form, and that load on to everything else just like a snowball. So I think that, yeah, that's probably the example that really helped the most for me personally.
Awesome. Love to hear it. Yeah, it's a bit of a shift from what most people are really conditioned to think. There's definitely a lot of stuff online these days that it's a very high productivity sort of culture out there, and it's do as much as you can all the time. And so what stats say is that that doesn't work for most people. So how are we going to make sure we can make these things work for us? Awesome. Yeah. So the other thing we'll talk about is sort of maintenance of these habits. So when you've sort of started them and you've got them going, it's never a set and forget. A lot of the time you will have to sort of come back. And so a lot of things that I like to do, things like getting sunlight in the morning. If I am super busy at work, I'll kind of forget about it, and I can go weeks without doing it, even though it used to be something I did every single day without thinking about it. And so definitely there's phases where I just have maintenance, and I'm just coming back to habits that I've already built to make sure that you don't lose them. So in terms of how to choose a habit, it's a pretty important sort of process. It can be the difference between you feeling successful or really just failing, choosing the right habit for you. So the first step there is just making sure that you choose one habit, ideally for a month, and then from there, if you potentially more weeks. So 4 weeks to 8 weeks is sort of a time frame that would work best for most people. It's where we kind of get everyone at fifth to work with. Choosing something that you'll think will have the biggest impact on your life. And then there's really 3 sort of processes or steps after that. So it's at the start, it's making it an active habit. So being active, you've got to think quite a lot about it. It's not something that's second nature to you. Once you've done that for probably 4 to 8 weeks, the second phase would be a follow-on habit. So it's the same habit, but you're making sure you can maintain it. And that's going to be after the first phase. And then from there, it's cementing the habit. So it's just reinforcing the habit. It could be dropped if you don't keep that in as a focus. So try and make sure that it stays as an effortless habit and it really cements itself in as something that you don't have to use any brain power to keep doing. Step 2 would be writing down your plan. So being really specific about what your goal is each day, when you'll do it, what the trigger is going to be, which is really important. So thinking about what is that trigger going to be and who you're going to report to. It's going to be a coach, a partner, a family member. Number 3, telling the person or the people that you trust, that you can keep accountable with, or someone that you can do it with as well. And reporting on your progress daily. So each day, telling them whether or not you succeeded, and you're just really making the snowball more dense each time you do that. So just reflecting on it and moving on from there. Yeah, beautiful. So actionable tools and rules that you kind of we really want you to follow when you're working through habits and behavior change. Making sure you only do one habit at a time. When you don't follow this, in our experience with clients at fifth, leads to close to 100% failure rate for forming multiple habits at once, especially in the long term. Whereas more like a 50 to 80% success rate if you're just doing one habit at a time. The next one, choosing an easy goal. So trying to avoid something that's really hard, especially early on. Choosing something that you know you can do every single day. So if you think you can do 30 minutes of exercise for a day, choosing something that's even easier than that, so choosing 10 minutes, or if you were going to choose 3 liters of water a day, just starting with a glass of water first thing in the morning, makes it really easy to make sure that you're going to succeed. So setting yourself up for success there. Next is choosing something measurable. So you should be able to say very clearly whether you were successful or not. If you choose exercise, setting a number of minutes or something similar. Whatever your goal, it needs to have some sort of measurement so you can really tick it off. The next one is being consistent, and that's a bit more focused on consistent timing. So you want to be able to perform it at the same time every day, ideally. If you're going to do exercise at 7 a.m. or 6 p.m. every single day, for example, it makes it much more likely that it's going to be a habit. But if you can't do it at the same time every day, making sure that you actively plan when you will do it and not leaving it to chance. I think most of us probably know that if you don't plan something, you're very unlikely to get it done. So that's a really important step there. Then it's getting down to that reporting daily to the chosen person or people, or checking it off in the 5EW app. The more often you check in, the more likely you are to succeed. So trying to do that every day is ideal. And then just keeping a positive attitude. Everyone should expect a rocky ride. It's really never a perfect sail. But just taking note of setbacks and then moving on. No need to feel embarrassed when you're trying to change behaviors. Everyone really does experience the same sort of challenges more often than not. Beautiful. So next time you're struggling or with your goals or feeling overwhelmed with the strategy that you set out, I invite you to reflect on if you're building a snowball from the ground up or if you're starting with a balloon. Yeah, so pretty much, if we recap, we've gone over what the snowball effect is, what habits are and how to set them, and some actionable tools and rules to follow to maintain and successfully achieve those habits and goals. Beautiful. So Jeff or Vince or Steph or Tim, I think Tim's in here as well. Is there anything that you can relate to or you feel like really resonated with you, or had a major key takeaway from today?
So there's two habits I'm trying to implement that I'm failing at miserably. One is I'm trying to, when I wake up, go and just spend 5 minutes out in the sun before I do anything.
Yeah.
And I think I've been successful maybe twice in the past 2 months of doing this. And I think it's because I'm not prioritizing it.
Yeah.
So the other one I'm trying to do is to get to bed by 10 o'clock. And again, I think because I'm not prioritizing it. So there are a few things that you've said that make a lot of sense there. So I think I'm going to just do one of them first.
Beautiful.
Then I'll aim to do the other one. But yeah, I need to do at least one of them, and I'm failing at both of them.
Great, mate. And if you like, the way I'd relate that to the snowball effect is which one of those is going to have a flow-on effect to the other. So it might make it easier to get the next one if you can choose the one that you feel like has a bigger impact on the next one. So that might be something worthwhile thinking about there. Steph, had your hand up?
Using the Zoom feature to see if it helped.
Oh, yes, very helpful. Thank you.
I just wanted to say it was very helpful to hear the stats, I think, and it was very helpful to even hear the examples that you had. For example, if somebody wanted to have 2.5 liters of water, to have just a glass in the morning, that kind of thing. And I think that what I've noticed from people is that if you can stack that with something that they're already doing very well, it kind of helps them along with that new habit as well. And so if someone's already having like breakfast, you could just have like a glass of water with their breakfast, and that could just be like a nice, easy win for them. So I actually found this talk very, very helpful. And I think I'm gonna implement that more. So I think that was really good, Ethan.
Very glad to hear that, Steph. And like I said, that's really good. It's using that idea of contextual sort of cues. So when you have something like eating breakfast and you add on the cup, it starts to become a habit. So you combine a few of them and you eventually don't have to think about any of them because they all happen from the first contextual cue, just like putting a seatbelt on after getting in the car. Beautiful. Jeffrey, any last words or takeaways?
I had a bit of an epiphany late last year because earlier in the year I injured my shoulder in a car accident, and my osteo had me doing all these tiny little exercises with like 1 kilogram dumbbell and 2 and it felt like pathetic, like this is not actually doing anything. And then at the end of the year, Sam had me doing some shoulder work with pulley weights.
Yep.
And what amazed me is my injured shoulder was at least twice as strong as my uninjured shoulder. So all those little rehab exercises that I was consistently doing 4 or 5 times a week didn't feel like much until we put it to the test like 7 months later, and it had been making a huge difference. So that's why I hate all these online people, like, get this 6-pack set of abs in just 4 weeks if you do this one exercise. It's not. Yeah. So looking for those big, huge results, I've realized was for me a way to feel like I'd failed, whereas it's the tiny little gains that you don't even notice that are accumulating, and I guess maybe similar to the snowball effect as you go.
Yeah, awesome, fantastic. It's everyone definitely has different ways of doing success, and it's really important to sort of find out what gets you ticking, and how that's going to keep you moving along towards those